wasn't a violent vertical edge setter.
I see some gas on the edge. Get that mindset to put your shoulder on somebody. Dig, drive. You're finished. Hey, burn down. This is weird. It worse than that side.
Well, what's happening, everybody? I have missed you so. The last 21 minutes has been utter pain for me. I don't know why I push it to 10:30. I get my leak done in a minute, and I should just come right back so I don't have to deal with that time frame. But I'm happy that you guys are here. We're going to have a good night. I'm excited because tonight I have a friend, a guest, somebody that I just can't wait to, share the enthusiasm and the pleasure of a win with. Let's say hello to Boy Green himself, Mr. Paul Esden Jr. What's up, Paul? What's going on?
Just your standard W. Your win. You're eating a W. Whatever Jameis Winston says. That's what I'm talking about, baby. The first win we've been happy about, passionate about in some time. I'm excited. I'm elated to be here.
Hell yeah. And that's so good, man. Honestly, realistically, the last win that I can think of that we were actually happy about was when the Raiders and 75% of the stadium worth of their fans came to MetLife and we shellacked them. I think it was 34-3, maybe. That was the last win I can remember being actually happy about. Am I off? Can you remember anything else?
I think that's not a bad one to hearken back to. The one I will say, and I was at this one, and sure it had a little special meaning. I was there with my old man, was that Jets-Cowboys game, and it was random, a lot of it, obviously. But it just happened to be the week Sam Darnold came back from mononucleosis and after seeing the Luke Falk show for a couple of weeks. So that's one that jumps out to me. And again, maybe it doesn't fit the narrative of the one you're absolutely over the top about, but I certainly was there live because there's so many moments in that game that I remember. Again, I was sitting with a lot of Cowboys fans, so that was an unspectacular, company that I was sharing with. But I told them before the game that I'm like, hey guys, this Robbie Anderson guy, you don't know who that is, but he's going to hit you for one deep. They went, shut up, Jets fan. We're going to blow you up by 40. And then when Sam Darnold at the goal line, I just saw him, and I knew he was faking it. I'm like, oh, my God, this is a touchdown. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? And he cocks back. I'm like, oh, my God, it's open. And then he hits it, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, man. And the Cowboys fans are like, just.
Right. Like, who is this undrafted free agent guy? But, that's such a good game, too. Like, that was the game Sam came back from mono. And I honestly believed, look how different we are with Sam Darnold in. I thought that was the beginning of the new era. And then next week was the Ghosts game. So we got to enjoy that for 1 week, Paul, which is why it's important to be happy, be excited, but not to start jumping all the way, the pendulum swinging all the way to the other side, start talking about Rookie of the Year and Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. It's a great win. Our team is moving forward, and I'm happy. I'm as happy as I should be, I think. Does that make sense?
1,000%. And again, that's the thing that I think a lot of people are losing here, that I had a lot of tweets saying, Paul, you beat the Titans. It's week 4. I'm like, hey, pal. Okay, we had 2 wins last year. 2. Okay, we're 2-14. And the 2 wins we got, quite frankly, I don't even know if anyone wanted those. So I said this.
Right.
And here's a stat for you, okay? The Jets, since 2019, this is embarrassing, disgusting, and just gross. The Jets in September and October since 2019, prior to this game, were 1-18.
Oh, my God.
I mean, that is a disgusting stat. One that obviously tells you that they're out of it completely before we even reach November. So to get a win like this that matches the 2 years, again, only one during that time frame, and to get it against a game opponent. I don't care if A.J. Brown was out. I don't care if Julio Jones was out. Can people just take a second and say, I know you don't look at the Jets because they're the Jets. I don't know, Carl Lawson, Mekhi Becton, maybe, Jared Davis. So suck it, fans. Well, suck it, because you wonder why we didn't have anybody, but I didn't hear anyone crying out the river. So the Jets got the win. They earned it, and Titan fans of the rest of the NFL can suck it.
That's right. And don't forget Marcus May and LaMarcus Joyner and Elijah Moore. It goes on and on and on down the line. Nobody even mentions that when we lose. Hey, sorry, you got to move. Sorry, my daughter's kicking stuff. Nobody even mentions that. And rookie head coach, rookie offensive coordinator, rookie quarterback, rookie left guard, rookie defensive back, 2 rookie linebackers. Nobody mentions any of this stuff. We're just the Jets, but the Titans missed 2 guys, and that's why we won. So it's a bunch of horse shit. I completely agree. I want to say hello to some people in the chat. You guys are the best. Rockaway Archie popped in first, and he came in with a very, very early let's roll. John Salty Nuts Nalsty's here. Rusty Spooner, AC. Joseph Schwert is in the house. We have John Amarella. How you doing, John? Jeremy's here. Mr. Finkelstein is in the house. John Postman Post is here. Mo Lake is back. Welcome back, Mo Lake. It's always good to see you. He'll be here trying to ruin our night for as long as we can take it, I think. But he's always welcome. Friggle D, Garrett Ham, and Garrett Ham brings up an interesting point. He says, I don't know about you guys, but I was happy about the wins last year. And I can understand that. And I don't ever get on anybody for rooting one way or the other. And anybody's, the way that they want to be a fan is the way that they want to be a fan. And I fully respect that. Me, I was rooting for losses. After about week 4 or whatever it was last year, I knew this is a train wreck. I want Adam Gase gone. I want it to be definitive. I don't want this guy here. So that's just me. I was rooting for losses. So when we did win those 2 games at the end, I was upset because I wanted, guess who? I wanted Trevor Lawrence. Now, what do you think real quick? Well, let me just continue saying hello. And then Mr. Rect is here. Emanon, Antonio Valentino, Sneakers to Boots, Scott Wilson. I mean, there's so many. Wat2K's here. Gitmo Bob is here. Dackle's here. So I want to thank all you guys for being here. We'll hang out here until we're done hanging out here. Paul's welcome to hang out as long as he wants. We usually go to somewhere around midnight. We'll see if that happens or not. But I love you guys in the chat. So let me ask you, the Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson comparison. For a couple weeks, people were saying, Zach Wilson's a bust. You heard it. They're saying we never should have did this. We should have taken anybody but Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, whoever. Now everybody's saying, aren't you glad we took Zach Wilson over Trevor Lawrence? You know how it goes, these pendulum swings. But how do you see just the first 4 weeks, Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson? Are you happy? Are you disappointed? Where do you stand?
I will also say this. I know I'm part of this after hours show. I feel like almost I need to show you my ID before I go any further. So I almost feel like I need to go grab that to confirm us moving forward. So I'm happy to be here. But to be honest, with the Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson thing, the fact of the matter is, as soon as the Jets won those games, we all knew it was over. The Trevor Lawrence hope and dreams, I was hoping for Trevor Lawrence like everybody. Once we reached a certain point in the season, when we were 0-8, 0-9, 0-10, I'm like, well, I guess this is what we got to root for. I guess this is what we're hoping for. And I'm going to be honest, I am elated where how everything has turned out so far. Because, Zach Wilson, you see the 4 picks. And when you see the 4 picks against New England, I'm like, oh boy. Not that it's over. Again, there's no way to go overreactionary one way or the other on things. But I'm just like, oh, man, now I'm going to hear from all these Patriot fans that live by me. Geez. You picked the wrong guy. And then the Sam Darnold people. You should have kept Sam Darnold. I'm like, come on, people. Can you give me a few weeks here? Jesus. But to be honest with you, I mean, these are the natural ebbs and flows. And really, now that we've seen the tangible product, which was the wow throws in this game against Tennessee, you then can now look back at the Carolina game. You can look back at the New England game. And you can look back even at the Denver game, although less so there. But still, the Corey Davis drop is that you saw all the morsels, all the breadcrumbs that were there saying just, hey, wait a second. wait a second here, that, wow, it could have happened in those games. Elijah Moore had the drop in Carolina. Corey Davis had the drop in Denver. And then New England, we know some of the things that went wrong there, the Corey Davis, but Zach Wilson took the L there. But there were those moments, and it all just came together against Tennessee. So to compare the two, quite frankly, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is operating with a college guy. They have an NFL offensive coordinator, so there's a weird rub there that I didn't like. Completely different identities, so it's weird because you have Urban Meyer in one year, their offensive coordinator in the other. So I think Trevor Lawrence, who's coming from a college system, that didn't make sense. For Zach Wilson, it's one message, and Robert Saleh has said that since day one with Mike LaFleur. So I've loved the progression we've seen from Zach, and I think Trevor's still going to be a special player. I actually think a lot of players, not named Mac Jones, are going to be pretty special in this class. I'm not a Mac Jones guy, but, I think Justin Fields is going to be good. I think Trey Lance will eventually be good. Trevor's going to be good. And I do think Zach's going to be good as well. So I love the progression so far. So and all the bus stuff, they can just go to town.
You know what? I feel the same way. It's interesting because I don't think Zach looking poorly or looking great is really an indicator that Trevor Lawrence or Justin Field are going to be one way or the other. I really like it. The fact that they are all looking impressive to me. Justin Fields, dude, he threw some dimes against Detroit, like super impressive passes. And I really like him. I think he's going to be good. I want to remind everybody who's on with us tonight. This is Boy Green, Paul Esden Jr. from the Jet Zone podcast. My first Jets podcast that I ever listened to, the truth, was the Jet Zone. I fell right in love with him. I listened to him every week. I still do most weeks. And he also writes articles for heavy.com. And there's something else you do. What else is that, Paul?
Let's see. So we got the heavy.com thing in there. That's great. We got the podcast in there. That's terrific. Do the sports talk radio show. I guess you want to throw that in there. If you just want Jets and a little bit of everything else, you got that every day, Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 here locally in Syracuse, and of course nationally, wherever you get the app. That's for free. But yeah, so a little bit of everything. But it's good. It keeps me busy.
That's right, and that's why I'm so grateful to have you on here.
Would be the other one as well. I'm not quite Greenbean level, obviously, but I'm trying to do my humble bricks, one brick at a time. That's our method.
That's the way to do it, man. Well, you have more than enough going on. Again, you were the first Jets podcast that I found. And then about a year or two later, maybe I found the Let's Talk Jets guys, and then on and on and on. But yeah, Paul was the first one I listened to. I love it every single week. And it's great to be able to get his take because Paul and I have been talking for a while and we never got to talk about wins or anything fun. It was all about, the best we could muster was draft picks and things like that. But as far as the actual football season, Jets fans have not been able to muster up too much to be happy about, unless you were an 0-16 guy last year. You had 14 games that you were pretty happy. So, but that's about it. So the way that this show works, Paul, I like to let the chat kind of dictate to a large degree what it is that we talk about. So they'll throw questions out and we try to get to as many as we can. And then you and I'll give our 2 cents on what they give us. Now, guys,
you're a man of the people. I love that about you.
Isn't that nice of me? But so, guys, we do try to do a good job of getting to most of your comments. It's obviously difficult to do that. So in the event you really want yours seen, a super chat is the way to do that. And I always appreciate it if you guys do that. But don't worry, we're going to try to get to as many as we can. So I want to acknowledge one thing, Paul, before we move on. Big Arms was in the Jets panel stream, and he asked me about 10 minutes into the stream, hey, what are your score predictions for this week against the Falcons? And I said, hey, slow down. We're going to get to that. And we never did. 2 hours, we never got to it. And I saw right as we ended the stream, he asked again, hey, score predictions. So I wanted to get to that right off. Yeah. So let me ask you, do you have a score prediction? You can embellish it if you'd like and give us some descriptive aspects. But what do you think is going to go on this weekend in London?
I'm going to give it to you guys straight here. And that's all I can do. I could just give you my humble opinion, but I will tell you this. I don't give predictions, GreenBean. So we got to be on the same page. I don't give predictions. What I give are spoiler alerts. That's what I give, okay? I don't give predictions. Awesome. I give spoiler alerts on this show. And the score prediction for this contest is going to be 42-15. It's going to be a bloodbath of epic proportions. The Jets are going to light the Atlanta Falcons up. And then the Zach Wilson train is going to go to an unbelievable high heading into the bye week. It's just going to be a Zach Wilson show.
Oh my gosh. So you think that the holes that the Falcons have on defense now, especially coming off of this win where we probably got a lot of confidence bubbling up on the Jets, you think we're going to take full advantage of that and light up the Falcons to 42 points, huh? Who do you see?
Absolutely.
Where do you see the scores happening? Is somebody going to dominate, or is it going to be spread around? How does it go?
I think it is going to be a spread. And here's the reason why I feel so confident about it is so the Jets win this game and they left so much meat on the bone. You think about all the throws in this contest that were either drops or just a miss here, a block missed here. And then all of a sudden you start adding them up. And you go, wow, they could have had that much more. They didn't play a perfect game, and they found a way to win. That's going to be incredibly inspiring. So in terms of the offense, Elijah Moore's expected to come back this week. Let's see him get in on all the fun. We're seeing a little Corey Davis, a little Keelan Cole, Jamison Crowder, spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we are going to get some of those other guys involved, and I think the random tight end scoring has to happen eventually. Perhaps it's Ryan Griffin, who they have a weird man love for. I don't quite understand it. Yeah, it's not quite GreenBean, Pat Fryermuth man love, but it's close with the Ryan Griffin there. So again, they were targeting him a lot, so I imagine Ryan Griffin's going to get involved. Elijah Moore, and I think Corey Davis is red hot. I think he developed a lot of confidence last week, and I think again, once these players see it, I think that builds. So we're going to get it all over the place in a fun Jet show kicking off at 9:30 Eastern time.
Yeah, I think that's, dude. I mean, I talk about a fun way for that to go. 42-15, was it? 42-15?
Yes.
Or 14. Okay, so let me tell you, if that should happen, I would lose my marbles. I would be so ecstatic seeing guys like a Keelan Cole get his first touchdown, like maybe even Mims gets involved.
Yeah, Mims, can he get a touchdown for the first time in his career? That'd be nice.
He would be getting his second catch of the season if that should happen.
Brutal.
I know it really is brutal, but hey, look, at least right now he's not playing, but the other guys are performing. For the first 3 weeks, that wasn't even happening, which made it that much more painful. I'm going to go ahead and say 27-21. That's what I'm going to say. I think Matt Ryan. I know Matt Ryan, Ridley, and Pitts. I think at some point they're going to have to kind of get something going. I think our young secondary might be the place where Ridley can have some fun. I still think we're going to beat him, and I think that we're going to see a lot of sacks. Matt Ryan's offensive line is not exactly getting anyone excited these days. So I think it's going to be a little bit closer, but a Jets win none the same. So I want to talk to you about a few score predictions in the chat. We have, let's see here. We are Jets with 24-13 Jets. Mark R 28-3 Jets. I think he's thinking like you're thinking. Our defense is going to hold them to.
And is that a little Super Bowl shout out from a couple years ago? They got the comeback 28-3 against the Patriots. Is that?
Oh, maybe it is
against the Falcons.
See? That's why you're cool. I never would have picked that up. I like that. I like what you're doing there.
Very nice.
Jets Forever says 45-0. Tony V says Jets 20, Falcons 10. That's a kind of a realistic way to view things, right? I like that. Joe Campione says 24-17 Jets. Garrett Ham is right with you. 42 points for the Jets. A little bit more, 24 for the Falcons. I think that's pretty cool. Watu K99, 31-21 Jets. I haven't seen too many people say that the Falcons are going to win yet. David Gerard says 28-17. That's nice to see. Eminon says 17-9 Jets win. Yeah. And Jets Forever says he's right with you. The Jets are putting up 40 points. That's exciting to think, because look, if anything came out of this game for me, I mean, there's a lot that I could take out of it, but if anything came out, I physically saw Zach Wilson gain confidence in the game. I saw it. I felt it happening right around the time that Keelan Cole pass came down, that nice first bomb to Keelan Cole. And then when the botched snap happened, he scooped it up and threw it to Crowder. I knew this is different. This is different. The guy's settling down. And look, he had 1 sack. And I think that's all the difference. Do you think our offensive line is going to continue to progress? What do you think of Van Roten? Where are you on all that stuff?
Well, on GVR, I mean, he has to be the most hated man in New York or New Jersey, perhaps both states just combined together. Quite frankly, it's I think he went out of his way to be a dick. I just thought,
Yeah.
to me, and I've said it in articles, podcasts, interviews everywhere, but I'll reiterate. After the game, and again, coming from, and I wasn't a college player, I was only a high school player, but like when people asked you, like, hey man, whoa, what happened there? I would always say, well, it starts with me. I blew it. Even if I didn't, that's just how I always operated. My modus operandi was eat the blame. And then if you want to, dabble in the water, say, it starts up front. We didn't block right. Obviously, he's a youngster. He could work on getting the ball out faster, but it starts with us. Like, that's what I would have preferred to see. And he didn't. He blamed Zach Wilson, threw his young passer under the bus, and then after tried to kind of, sweep it all together. We all got to be better. No, and I just hated the comment. So GVR, again, he was fine, and we thought heading into this year he was going to be the weakest part of this offensive line, and he's proven to be. But the rest of the offensive line is picking it up. ABT had a great game. I always thought George Fant and Morgan Moses, if that situation ever presented itself with a Becton injury, they would be serviceable, and they've been more than that. So they've been great.
Well, and that's the thing. Look, Joe Douglas has really picked up a lot of heat. Like, a lot of people are kind of dumping on him, and centered around Greg Van Roten. I think there's a lot of people saying he did a very poor job filling that hole, knowing that Greg Van Roten was less than awesome last year. Excuse me. And I think that a lot of people forget that we had Cam Clark, who was really the guy I think they were hoping would win the job. I think they were really giving him every opportunity. Cam Clark was on IR, and Alex Lewis retired suddenly out of nowhere. And they keep bringing in guards, Daniel Brown, a whole bunch of guys. And it's just Greg Van Roten is kind of what we're stuck with. But I think the fact that where the tackles are concerned, look, dude, we had a franchise level left tackle go down, and we had tackles on the bench ready to come in and actually play. We still have a serviceable backup in Chuma Edoga, who I don't love, but he's still a decent backup. So we had 3 tiers for the offensive tackle position. And I think that should really be a reason to praise Joe Douglas, honestly, because there's a lot of places where our depth is really starting to improve, and we're not used to that. The tackles, the wide receivers, the running backs. So I think there's a lot really to look at and say, look, we're heading in the right direction right now. It's not like we're done, but we really are. Like you mentioned, Fant and Moses, not perfect, but they're pretty damn good, aren't they?
100%. And that's, if I was ever going to pound the chest for Joe Douglas, and he's made a lot of mistakes, and people can point at them if they want. The Ryan Khalil disaster of trying to get him back. The 2020 draft class in itself, again, if Mekhi Becton is the superstar left tackle we all think he is, then maybe that saves the whole draft class. But the rest of it is super questionable based on everything we've seen. So there's a lot of points to criticize Joe Douglas, but a point where we should praise him is George Fant. Everyone lit him up and said he was wrong when he signed George Fant and picked him over seemingly Jack Conklin and others. And he picked George Fant. They're like, ugh, George Fant. And he was serviceable last year. And he's proven to be serviceable this year. Perfect? No. Serviceable? Yes. And this new scheme obviously has helped highlighting and accentuating his athleticism. I thought he's been solid. So I think a lot of Jet fans owe him an apology. So we got to send out the Joe Douglas apology form. Maybe we could get a petition going, get some Jet fans signing that one.
Yeah, and that's a good point about George Fant too, because people looked at it as the whiff when we didn't sign Jack Conklin, right? They thought it was like a panic move. Don't forget, Joe Douglas was really young in his general manager position. So they thought it was a panic move by a guy that got beaten out for Jack Conklin. So, and he did that scouting, like that was his own team. He said, no, this guy can play. They brought him on. He did a pretty damn good job last year. And he's doing a good job for us this year. And that's one of the things, just like you said, Paul, we're not going to be perfect. There's plenty of moves that I didn't like from Joe Douglas. Don't love how he handled the kicking situation until very recently. Lots of things, James Morgan, so on and so forth. But there's a lot to look at, and it really based in their ability to locate, identify, and grab young talent that is developmental. Like these guys, look at Brandon Eccles, Michael Carter II, Jamie and Sherwood, and on. All these guys that honestly nobody was talking about before the draft. Maybe Michael Carter II had a few people, but overall nobody was talking about these guys. And Joe Douglas, where George Fant is concerned, found him. Like, these are guys, they're not worried about what anybody else is thinking. They're doing their own evaluation, which is a 180 from Mike McCagnon, who seemed to read the papers and do whatever the press wanted. Whoever the number one guy was on, that's the guy he took. There was no imagination, no creativity, no self-evaluation. So I'm really happy. Look, I'm not there yet, but I'm really happy with the direction that we're going right now.
No doubt about it. Completely agree.
So let's get into the chat here. Let's see. So somebody said we're actually better without Becton, just saying. And I saw a couple of comments that kind of asked for clarification, but quickly, do you think that's the case? Or do you think when Becton comes back, clearly he's going to be put back in his starting place?
Come on, people. Like, Mekhi Becton has an incredibly high ceiling. There's a reason that they've called Hall of Fame traits, Pro Bowl caliber, and all these things. Has he had rough moments? Yes. Look at the summer. He was a turnstile for any pass rusher that came to town. No question about it. But he's still an incredibly young player. And I think the thing that also people super underrate here is he was learning a different scheme. He had a scheme year one of what to do. And in year two, they're asking these offensive linemen to do completely different things. Now, to the common fan, offensive linemen, they block, you block. It's not that easy. There's all kinds of principles and all kinds of things that go into different schemes and schematics of offensive line play and how to block and all these footwork and a million different things and variables go into it. No, the offensive line is not better without him. They are surviving. They're doing a great job. That's because Joe Douglas got Morgan Moses late. Thank you, Washington, for that one. It's because he invested in George Fant and he had the flexibility to play both left tackle and right tackle. They got lucky. They got fortunate from that standpoint. But no, are they better without Mekhi Becton? No, that's an odd perception that a lot of Jet fans seem to have. No, they're not.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that first game was interesting because Becton did look lost for times out there. But I also thought the rest of the offensive line looked lost. It wasn't just everybody's doing a great job and then Becton is somehow the weak link. It was just like our offensive line, they were missing stunts. They were double blocking one guy while a guy came through on the other side. It was like they were all over the place. So I think that was more the line itself as opposed to just Becton. And I can't wait till Becton comes back. I mean, that guy has franchise left tackle potential. And people talk about, look, all through training camp, it was plantar fasciitis. And there was the article about him eating himself to death. He was supposed to be over 400 pounds. None of those things were accurate. They're just stories that people are pushing. So I think Becton is fine. I think that it's really unfortunate that he got rolled on the way that he did. But one thing I will say, I think if he wasn't such a man, like a true bruising man, that would have been a season-ending injury. His tendons are so strong, it was just a strain. That's how I look at it, Paul. That's how I
gotta say that I love that, and I know you and Rich Samini are so close on this show, so I want to be very careful with that tender and beautiful relationship you guys have. But that line made me laugh, and that was the one you were talking about in the article where he says, Mekhi Becton, instead of like serving pancakes, he was eating them.
Yeah, I know, right?
That was hilarious. It just going out of your way for that line was just terrific. And I saw fans go crazy about it. And then obviously Mekhi Becton went, what the hell? So that was just hilarious. That was funny.
Yeah, so I can't wait to get Becton back too, man. I think like it really is something. Like look at the adversity that we've already faced. I mean, truly, again, we have rookie leadership. Mike LaFleur and Robert Saleh get all the press as the rookies, but don't forget, Ulbricht was only an interim defensive coordinator for half the season last year. It's not like this is what he's been doing. We have 3 rookies. The only guy with any real experience in his position is Boyer, our special teams coach. So you look at that leadership. Joe Douglas is still early in his tenure as a general manager. He only had 2 drafts. It's not like some guy who's been doing this for 10 years. So we have a lot going on there. And then the injuries and the retirements and all this sort of stuff. And I gotta say, I'm happy with a lot of the progression, particularly on defense. What did you think about the defense against the Titans? Did you like what you saw? Were there any negatives? What happened there for you?
I just have to keep taking the L. I'm on a media train of L's. I can't believe I am flabbergasted, flabbergasted, just befuddled, mind-boggled that this cornerback group. I thought they were going to be crucified during the season. I thought people were going to be making fun of them on a weekly basis, even like during the season or off season rather. People were saying this is the most inexperienced cornerback group in the NFL. And then you saw what happened with the safeties, right? So, we lose LaMarcus Jordan, torn tricep, out for the year. Oh, that sucks. Marcus May, weird ankle sprain / something more serious. So he's out for randomly more weeks. And then the agent tweet. So, okay. So all of a sudden the safety's exploding. You have Sherrod Neesman, who? Adrian Colbert, who? Like, you have all these nobodies randomly playing back there. You got to give a massive amount of credit to Jeff Ulbrich. What a hire at defensive coordinator. He's the one calling the plays. Robert Saleh gets the credit because he's the defensive wizard, and he's great, and he's been fantastic. But Jeff Ulbrich's the guy, so he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. I mean, if we just talked about how impressed I was with the defense, then we're never going to hear from another fan the rest of this show, because the 7 sacks, CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams. And by the way, I have been on an apology tour, not for me, but for everyone else who wants to submit their apologies. Because I wrote an article last week. I said, oh, that Quincy Williams guy's pretty good. Oh, Paul, you're an idiot. You're a stupid fan. Look at the PFF grades, coverage grades, you moron. And then guess what happened this week? I'm like, maybe a little Hulk Hogan, maybe a little over here, because Quincy Williams was fantastic. A heat-seeking missile that was just obliterating guys, and almost to a fault. If he would have had his eyes and wits about him, maybe he would have had a couple of picks. But that's okay, because Quincy Williams, what a beast. Emotion, energy, chutzpah. And that obviously was infectious to his teammates. Wow. I mean, I was just overwhelmed by the defense. Terrific, spectacular, unbelievable.
Yeah, and don't forget, Quincy Williams is literally our 5th swing at a linebacker to go next to CJ Mosley. So that shows, man, it's like how well this coaching staff can adapt. Now, not everybody works. Like, you bring in Nasruddin, he struggled. Sherwood had some good plays, some bad plays, but they're all young, but they just keep working them in. They keep bringing them up. Look at our defensive backs coach, Tony Oden. They literally handed him 2 second-year players, one of who was an undrafted free agent, and 4 rookies, really. And they said, hey, do this. Here's this. Do this for us. Make sure that these guys don't get made fools of. And he's done just that. And that guy, man, even Isaiah Dunn got into the party last week against the Titans. So it's like, these guys, dude, Paul, imagine that most of them do work out for us. Imagine how long these guys are going to be able to play together in this system. We're going to seriously have the potential to have that kind of defense that, like, telepathically can communicate with each other. They all know each other, and they live, eat, sleep, and breathe the system. I can't even imagine what the potential really is for this defense. Now, Quincy Williams, I always say Quincy Wilson. Quincy Williams is an interesting one, right? Well, Quincy Williams is interesting because, like you said, he was kind of pulled off the scrap heap from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah. And he's missing some tackles here and there too, but you gotta love this last game. Like you said, the key word, the energy. Him and CJ Mosley were thumping dudes, and they were running full speed and just crushing everybody. And it really does give me a lot of hope, man. But what do you think about CJ Mosley? What do you think about that guy after his 2-year hiatus?
So when CJ Mosley was signed and he reset the linebacker market, remember 2 years ago, 2019, 5 years, $85 million. They get in a bidding war with the Baltimore Ravens. They're just trying to top each other. 70, 75, 80, 85. Ultimately, the Jets win this bidding war for C.J. Mosley, completely resetting the linebacker market. Quan Alexander said it at like, I don't know, 13 and a half or something. And then C.J. Mosley's average was 17 million. We're like, oh my God, that much for an inside linebacker? But the Jets believed in the leadership and everything. And then we see in that first game against Buffalo for that first half, oh my God, he's worth every goddamn penny. He is spectacular. And then, of course, he gets injured, COVID year, opts out. And I think a lot of fans, again, that's a personal decision, but a lot of fans were upset going, oh, come on, man. Now it's just another free agent bust. Throw him in the list of the Trumaine Johnsons and every other horrible, we don't have to redocument it. It's positive times right now. But, you know, all those horrible free agent misses. And then C.J. Mosley heading into the year, I think a lot of people went, let's see what he has. Some people even wanted to trade him in the middle of the year. I know Rich Cimini floated that around free agency when Jared Davis was signed. C.J. Mosley gone. And I'm like, why? You're already paying him. Might as well see what he's got, you know, instead of just giving up. And again, he has been flying around the football. I don't think any of us could have had this level of expectation. He's playing at an elite level. He is playing just like he was in Baltimore. Coverage, hitting. And then the great line, you know, I got to share the story from Robert Saleh this week at his presser. And he says, CJ in the middle of the game, right? So what they do for their system is they call in a play. And then once they call it in, that's it. There's no player communication. It's we call in the play, you tell the play to the rest of the guys, and that's it. They call in the play. CJ apparently sees something from the Titans offense, says, you know what? I'm changing the play. As soon as they see he's changing it, going, red, blue, peacock, 22. Yeah. Robert's like, no, what the hell are you doing? That's idiotic. What are you doing? And then CJ Mosley gets a sack on the play, and then Robert Saleh apparently turns to the guys. That's why he's an all-pro. It was special. It's incredible. It was great. It was awesome. So, again, CJ Mosley, to keep a long story short, long story long, again, CJ Mosley has been spectacular. There's no other way to put it. And he's been special. And, wow, fans are just getting a real treat every time they see him.
Dude, and it's so great to have him because, look, he was the exact type of a guy, like the situation, not him, where somebody could just go, well, I'm guaranteed 17 mil for the next 4 years or 3 years. And he could have just kind of sat back and did nothing. You know that. I mean, and especially for the Jets, we see that more than most. But he came in, and it shows you that when he signed that contract, he had every intention of earning it. And it's so great to see. And here's the silver lining with what you just said about that play. Not only did Robert Saleh and Ulbricht kind of realize, you know, holy shit, he's changing something, but the team, knowing how they operate, all responded to CJ Mosley, even knowing that nobody changes the play once it's in. He did it, and the team looked at him and said, done. And they all changed because that's the leader that he is. Yes. And that's what we've been sorely missing over the years, bro.
We haven't seen it since David Harris, to be honest with you. And it was hard to imagine when we were going to see that level of leadership on the middle of the defense. The guy who's calling the plays, the guy that's lining everybody up in a new scheme. So he's been special.
Yeah. So I want to remind everybody, it's really nice, and you will feel better if you hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, that would be appreciated as well. Don't forget to check out Paul Boy Green Esden's YouTube channel as well. The information is in the description of this video for his YouTube page, and you can also find him wherever you listen to podcasts. Just look up the Jet Zone, and you will see him. Please don't forget to support, and it's always appreciated, as you know. We love it. So Mark Reed is actually over there in the UK. He says this is a home game for him. He's English, and he wants to know, how do we really match up with the Falcons? So where do you think our strengths lie, and where do you think we can exploit some things for the Falcons?
You know, one thing you mentioned is the sack opportunities against this offensive line that's questionable for Atlanta, and that's true. But the bigger thing I have that I believe the Jets will take advantage of is Matt Ryan has the mobility of a parked car. With that being said, it's going to be a great opportunity to get after him because you don't have to worry about a Ryan Tannehill, who's a former wide receiver who was a top 10 pick and everything else, and has that high level of athleticism that if you break contain, he can get loose and get wild on you. Matt Ryan ain't getting loose anywhere. So you can have that in your playbook and know the different kinds of exotic blitz schemes you can get after him to get him because he's not very mobile. Obviously, it's going to be the greatest challenge for number one corner Bryce Hall. Calvin Ridley is a dynamic weapon, even though he hasn't consistently proven it. And the other thing that scares me is Kyle Pitts. Of course, it would be against the Jets that he finally figures it out and they finally get him to pop. He is an exotic weapon. He's done nothing this year, absolutely nothing. Fantasy-wise, he's been under 10 points every week, and then NFL-wise, he's been terrible. So they just need to figure out how to use him, which is weird because you take someone with the number 4 overall pick, you think you'd know how to use him, but that's neither here nor there. I think that's the key. The deep and the player we haven't talked about, Cordero Patterson. He is a man reborn. Of course, he's just figuring out in year 10 what's happening there.
I know, right?
He's been special. He's a unicorn player. Running back, wide receiver, had scored 3 touchdowns last week. He's going to be a tough player for the Jets. The wheel route opportunities against the linebackers, that's something that's hurt the Jets in the past. That's the weakness. If the Falcons are going to win, that's how they're going to do it.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And it's so important that we get that initial push because Matt Ryan is he's a 5-step drop kind of quarterback. I mean, they like their plays to develop. They like all that stuff. So if we can get the push right up the middle with Sheldon Rankins, Quincy Williams, John Franklin Myers, and the rest, I think we stand a really good chance to knock them off kilter. And then we can start to feast like we did this past week. I mean, look, we shouldn't get all nuts. I mean, everybody talking about our defense, being this or that. It was a good game, and we really like our front seven, but we need to do this consistently. Jets, traditionally, this would be the exact game that we come out and lay a complete egg. You know that. That's what we've done in years past. Like, we look really good, just like that Dallas game that you mentioned with Sam Darnold coming back. We got all excited, and the next week it was like, where did they go? What happened to the team? So I'm really still nervous that this is going to, end up being some big disappointment for us, but I think this is a good time to see what Saleh and Ulbricht and the rest can do to keep the team hungry and motivated. And if they do that, Paul, it's going to be a good time.
It will be. And one more thing is the screen game, obviously. Again, we forget these things when the Jets win. We're like, oh, wow, it was perfect. They just did everything right. The screen game was brutal. The Titans did it with tight ends. They did it with running backs, and that's how you beat the Saleh scheme. You get your aggressive 4 rushers up. They're going buck wild with the ears pinned back. They're not even thinking or aware, and then just over the top. They gave up so many 3rd and long plays, and that was tough. So, again, I'm sure the Falcons are going to watch that on tape and get Cordero Patterson out there, Mike Davis, and any of the receivers. There's going to be a lot of screens. The Jets have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, man. But I think that we can, we're watching a team that is learning. We're watching a young team that is learning every week, developing. They're still trying to figure out who they are in the NFL. And our coaches are still learning how to be in their new position. So every single week, we just have to see these guys progress. And if we do that, man, we are in such a good position. It's exciting. It really is. So Watu-K99 wants to know who covers Pitts. Do you think? Who do you think we're going to give that responsibility to?
Well, definitely not Quincy Williams. That's
right.
for sure. That's funny. That's a good question. I mean, I would imagine we just put Hamza Nasir-Lardine on IR, so that's kind of disappointing. He would have been an interesting, rangy player that perhaps you could have done that. CJ right now is doing a little bit of mix, where he plays either Mike or Sam, and then they're mixing kind of, again, the position, titles are somewhat irrelevant because what they do is so similar in terms of everything. But maybe CJ Mosley, but man, I think it's going to be a bracket attack is kind of what you're going to have to do. But you have to be careful because Calvin Ridley as well, unless you just island it up with Bryce Hall, which is interestingly something Robert Saleh has done quite often, actually, is just lay them out there, one-on-one opportunities, and just trust their guys. So there's going to be a little bit of that. But I would bracket Kyle Pitts. I'd have whoever the safety is, whether it's Sherrod Neesman, whether it's Colbert, I'd have one of them kind of bracketing over top and always watching Pitts. Even though he hasn't exploded yet, that doesn't mean he won't explode here.
That's right. He's got the talent to do it, man. I mean, that's the thing. We don't want to lull ourselves to sleep thinking, he hasn't done anything yet. Like, Pitts is explosive. So if, how many times have the Jets been the team that some player has his coming out party?
Yeah, right.
I don't want to see that. So here's a good question from Jet Life 45. Hello, Jet Life 45. It's good to see you, buddy. I've actually got the opportunity to meet him on numerous occasions. If Quincy Wilson continues to play that he has, the way he has, what happens when Jared Davis comes back? How do you see it?
100%. To me, I think they all just step up to the plate. And what I mean by that is the starters are, again, you're going to have CJ Mosley, you have Quincy Williams right now. And if Jared Davis comes back after the bye, that was the projected timeline back right before the season started. We'll see if that's still accurate. I don't think we've asked Saleh that yet. I think, quite frankly, you just line up the three. You're going to have CJ Mosley, you're going to have Quincy Williams, and then you're going to have Jared Davis. I think they can all play together. I don't think there's just because they may play similar linebacker positions that they're going to be outside the ballpark. Again, I think the linebacker titles are kind of overrated by us, the fans. The job responsibilities are very simple. Outside of Mosley, he's going to call the plays, but he could do that from Sam, Mike, or Will. That's irrelevant. So I think when Jared Davis comes back, this team believes in him. He will play Mike linebacker. You have CJ still at the Sam, and then you can keep Quincy at the Will.
That's interesting. I think I'm actually thinking something similar. I mean, they were really high on Jared Davis before the season, and the injury was very unfortunate. Somebody actually fell on his knee, and so they were really disappointed. And I actually agree with you. I think that when Jared Davis comes back, if he's 100%, he's playing. That's how I see it. Now, he'll be more likely to push Sherwood to the bench than Quincy Wilson or Quincy Williams if this keeps going, which is fine. But either way, I think Jared Davis is going to end up seeing some playing time. So let's see. I saw another one. Oh, Girl Getter. Lucky you, Girl Getter. That's good news. I think our culture has shifted like crazy. These players seem to want it and see the future. Do you see that? You think the culture is shifting in the positive direction? Do you have any indicators?
I will say that I had a little bit of a negative take coming off that Denver game where it seemed like at the end of that game, after a couple of plays happened where I'm like, wow, they're looking a bit lackadaisical. Now they finished strong. They had the goal line turnover. I believe that was Javonte Williams, so they forced that on. So they had moments, and there was stuff where I'm like, oh, I don't know. It seems on the fringe. But ultimately, yes, it does seem like there's a passion. It does seem like there's a care. It's a new era. We're still in the honeymoon period here. We're entering week 5 of the first season. They have faced adversity, obviously, to the greatest lengths. And Greg Knapp, obviously, our thoughts and love are still with his family. And then to just normal football stuff of injuries and everything. So this team obviously has dealt with a variety of adversity so far this year. But I do see a love. And I think that emanates from the top down, When you have it at the top, there's a trickle-down effect. Robert Saleh is a passionate, emotional guy, and I think obviously that resonates with the team.
That's so funny, Paul, because I have to agree. I thought the same thing. And in my podcast that week, I talked about it. I said, look, man, the culture change thing, this is a really pivotal moment for this team because it looks to me like they're a little bit undisciplined, lots of penalties. They're not really adhering to the new systems. Like we see sloppy play all over the place. And I was getting a bit nervous, honestly. I mean, I wasn't giving up. I'm not one to jump off like that. That's not who I am. I'm not one of those guys. With all due respect to all of you who are, I'm just not that way. But I did start to question whether or not Saleh was really going to have answers for this. That's why this game was so incredibly important, man. But I agree. I think that this game showed that, hey, I think this is a batch of people that are blue collar, are hardworking, are high character. They're not reading the press, and they're just going to forge through this. And with our ups and downs, we're just going to continually see progress, which is the most important thing. I want to point out Garrett Ham's comment. I completely agree. He says he's going to petition that Quincy Williams changes his name to Quincy Wilson to make it easier for GreenBean because clearly I am incapable of grasping this one.
That's been great throughout the show. That's been great. Quincy Williams and Wilson questions coming, folks.
Yeah, that's appreciated, Garrett. I thank you. Billy SBC reminds us, hey guys, Ryan threw for 295 and 4 touchdowns last Sunday. We better not take the Falcons lightly. And yeah, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like this, I don't want to say trap game because we're 1-3 and we've looked like laughing stock for a little while there. I don't want to go shift to the other side and say this is a trap game. But like we mentioned, it really is traditionally. with our old regimes, this was exactly the type of game that we would come out and look porous. Let's just say that.
I would just say on the comment, like, it's not like he was facing the 1985 Chicago Bears. The Washington defense sucks. They stink. They have been awful.
Funny?
Look at, again, heading into the year, ooh, wow, Washington could be the best defense in the league. Look at the stats, Billy Zack, or whatever your name is. Like, look at the stats, man, is that Washington's been terrible. Again, I'm not trying to overlook Matt Ryan. He is a very, very good player. He's a former league MVP. They were this close to winning the Super Bowl, and they blew it, obviously, but they were that close to doing it. Like, he's a very special player that has definitely lost his deep ball. If you look at the advanced metrics, they have these chips where they could check how fast the velocity of the football is, and it's been way down for Matt Ryan this year, which indicates, again, that washed and all those kind of things. He's losing the touch that he's had throughout his career, and some players can overcome that, some players can't. So the numbers are impressive, but Washington sucks. So I don't know how much I take from that, but still, the point remains is that you can't overlook anybody. I'm not saying the Jets defense is the second coming of the 2000 Ravens, but again, they've been playing special, and I think Matt Ryan presents some opportunities to pile on some stats from a defensive perspective.
Right. And that's interesting that you say that this defense isn't necessarily the Ravens, because Jets Forever chimes in and says, we have the best defense in football. Not worried about the Falcons' star pass catchers. Our offense better not sputter. As long as they stay hot, this team can win any week. Now, whether or not I agree with the best defense comment, I do think that we have a lot of talent that I think we're overlooked as far as how much talent really is on this team, even by some Jets fans. But do you agree? Do you think that we have a legitimate shot to win any week? I mean, not on just the normal plane, like, of course, any team can win. But really, do you think that we're going to see an upward trajectory and that we're going to be able to win any game that we play, Paul?
Based on what I've seen from the defense and to what he's saying is that, yes, I believe the Jets can win any week because they have the formula to win on any week. Defense travels, that's good. And the offense, I think, again, once they've seen that tangible product that was the Tennessee Titans game, we will see Falcons will be the true test. But if we see the same pops offensively, the Jets should go into every week realistically, depending on certain games like Tampa Bay and a game like that, although, Tampa nearly lost to New England, but there's a lot of mitigating factors there, weather, emotion, and stuff like that. But within reason, any game, the Jets should be, with this formula, able to win games. As long as you don't have Zach Wilson blowups, where it wasn't even complicated schemes, it was just him getting in his own head and throwing bad interceptions. If that doesn't happen, the Jets can win any football game. That is absolutely true. The offense has to be not even spectacular, but somewhat average, because the defense kept the Jets in the game against the Titans. It could have blown up. The 9-0 score could have easily been 21-0, and then the Jets never come back in that game. The defense held them to field goals, which opened up the opportunity to fight back. That wouldn't have been possible the other way. So you can't always start as slow as you did against the Titans and expect to win games.
Right. That's such a good point, man. And I think our defense has done that every week. Like, they've given enough every week to give us a chance to be in the games. After they're on the field for excessive amounts of time, you're going to see, just like anybody else, they wear down, they start missing tackles later in the game, like in the Patriots and everything. Like in the Patriots game, they were on the field for all but 4 plays of the entire first quarter. 4 plays. Like, so how do we expect it? Now, here's a cool thing. When the offense came out and scored that first touchdown, the defense rallied, came right back in and up in 3, down in 3. The next offensive series for the Titans was 3 and out. So that shows the defense can be inspired by the offense and can use that momentum. And, they've been carrying us. So if the offense could just come up and just catch the ball, maybe, we've led the league in dropped passes. So if we could just play serviceable, adequate NFL offensive football, our defense can be the difference maker, in my opinion. I'm really excited about what we have there. And look, man, Paul, I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit here. Not that you didn't already admit it, but the word you used for our defensive backs was suck. Yeah. That's what you, yeah. So you were definitely, you have to be surprised by the defensive backs, huh?
Oh, no question. And anyone who brings up old tweets, articles, again, that's the nature of the business, and I'm not hiding from it. I came on this show, obviously, and that was the word, quote, oh, you said suck?
Yeah.
Yes. Again, I thought Bryce Hall was going to be good, but even me, the biggest Bryce Hall fan in the world, I didn't expect this elite cornerback one level of play he's had. So that's spectacular. He's always had the talent, but obviously the devastating injury, the new scheme, and all that. I thought he was going to be good, but I didn't think he was going to be great. So he's been great. And the rest of the bunch, Brandon Eccles, Michael Carter II has been the best rookie on the team. He's been special. And then the revolving door at safety has just been, again, that's all Ulbrich and Saleh just getting people off the streets and being able to somewhat denigrate the value of the safety position, where it's almost the Mike Shanahan thing where any running back I can plug in, I can get 1,000 yards. Any safety I can plug in, I can figure it out, because these guys are just pieces of scrap at safety and they're figuring it out. So I couldn't have been more wrong on the corner. So victory lap for everyone who believed. Shout out to DJ Bieneme. He's another guy that I gave a shout out to on Twitter earlier today. He's one that said, I wouldn't add any corner. I said, oh, Richard Sherman, oh, Steven Nelson. I was writing articles every week. Anyone who had a pulse, yeah, sure, come on down. Join the team. So I couldn't have been more wrong on that. So I will continue to eat L's all year long on that. I am pleasantly surprised by what's happened at corner, no question.
Yeah, and this is the stuff I love being wrong about. I right? Like people do that, like, Twitter and all that. It's kind of like this environment sometimes where if people are right, they remind you 6 months ago, I said this. And like, that's the way that the world is. And I always tell everybody, like, look, dude, I'm a Jets fan. I'm a die-hard Jets fan. If a guy I think sucks ends up coming out and being an all-pro, I'm not unhappy because I was wrong. Right. That's just not how I love it. Yeah. I love when I'm wrong. The sad part is I rarely am. So that, especially where that, I wish, I wish it happens from time to time, but yeah, man. And I appreciate you saying, and I'm playing, but this is the kind of thing that, look, to have this group of upstarts look as good as they have, that is a testament to how they're adhering to the coaching and to the tutelage and the mentorship and their hard work, man, because it's happening. And I'm sure that they're all going to have their moments that they get picked on. It's going to happen, but it's all part of this progression. And I'm really excited. But you brought up the running backs in the Shanahan system. So Garrett Ham says he just wants to see the running game get going. What do you think it's going to take for that? Because we've seen our plays. There's been Michael Carter had a nice 13-yard run. Tevin Coleman had a couple niceys. But overall, I think the running game has been a disappointment. What do you think it's going to take to get us going there?
Conviction, if I had to pick a word. Mike LaFleur said it a couple of times throughout the first couple of weeks. I gave up on the run game too early. And then he just, turned back to Zach Wilson, pocket passer kind of thing. And those didn't work. You will have to get a little bit creative. We saw that a little bit in this game as well, where obviously we had Braxton Berrios jet sweeps. I'd like to see that with Elijah Moore when he gets in, who's a younger, more explosive version of that. So I'd love to see those opportunities. And then just straight up running the football. I want to see a conviction. They got this weird three-headed attack. They're leaning a little bit more towards Michael Carter, and Tevin Coleman is this weird closer, and then occasional Ty Johnson burst. He had a nice third down reception. He has that ability to be explosive and be a pass catcher. So it's kind of, again, a revolving door, so to speak. But once that gets going, you've seen the passing game, and that will lead to the play action game, which I believe ultimately, despite the analytics saying the Jets haven't done it a lot yet this season, that's the true bread and butter of this offense. That's where you could get Corey Davis over the middle for short and intermediate gains, which leads to the deeper opportunity. So really, that's the missing piece to everything kind of coming together and all the cogs of the machine moving and grooving appropriately. It's the running game that will equal everything else. But I think conviction is the missing piece. You've got to want it. I love it.
I love that. And I agree, man. Like I think it was against the Denver Broncos, we had 13 runs. Now I get it. We're playing from behind, but you have to commit to something and make it work. Look, you have to adjust as well and all that sort of stuff to what you're seeing on the field. But I completely agree. And the truth is I'd love to see more LaMichael Pirine. I think Ty Johnson, for all of his potential benefit with the ball in his hand, I don't think it outweighs his lacking in pass protection. I think he's a liability out there, and I'm a big Pirine supporter as a piece, not to be the feature back or anything. I do think that as we move forward, Michael Carter should kind of grow into that feature back, even if we still use a committee. I still think Michael Carter should be a little bit more of the focus. He has the most potential, I would say. But I still think LaMichael Pirine should supplant Ty Johnson. And I was sad to see Josh Adams go, but that is what it is. He had enough. He had enough going practice squad. But he just said, you know what? I'm not signing with you guys again. He's not even signed by another team. He just decided, I'm done. I'm done with this roller coaster. I hate it. I don't care if I don't work. I'm done. So it's sad to see him go. But I think the offensive line, too, once they really get settled, and you're seeing it, like they played a better game. It wasn't perfect yet, but they played a better game. Do you think the offensive line, do you think Van Roten and McGovern are going to settle down and we're going to be able to keep these guys? Or do you see somebody like maybe Isaiah Wilson kind of pushing Van Roten off the active team? Like, what do you see going on there with the O-line?
To be honest, my expectations are very low. Before the year, Damian Woody came out and said, Connor McGovern is destined to have a better year because he can't be much worse, So, I got the thought process. And then GVR, again, in theory, if he's the weakest part of the offensive line, the rest of the line should be so good that it's okay. The problem is I don't think they're going to get better significantly. I think you're just going to have to bite the edge of the bed and just take the rest of it with you. And once we get to the end of the year, buy Connor McGovern, buy GVR, and then just invest, whether that's in the draft. They're going to have 2 first-round picks. Get yourself a nice center. I hear there's a couple good ones in the draft. Hint, hint, cough, cough. Maybe you can plug and play somebody there, and Joe Douglas continues to beat that train and then dip into free agency. I just don't think that anything's going to change in the immediate for either of those guys, being realistic on that sense.
Yeah, I honestly feel comfortable saying that Joe Douglas will probably take at least one offensive lineman every year. And I think that's smart. I mean, we went 5 years and drafted one offensive lineman. I mean, how the hell do you expect to get anything done? It's amazing when you look at it. Like, honestly, it's like, really not one again? Yeah. So Joe Douglas has used 2 first-round picks on offensive linemen, a 3rd-round pick on offensive linemen, and obviously done the other things with undrafted free agents and free agents. But I think we're going to see another offensive lineman brought on. I still like Connor McGovern. I'm not going to sing his praises, but I still think it's the schematic issue. It's the whole offensive line. Van Roten, I'd love to see him settle down, but more than likely this is his last time with us, at least as a starter. But I think the offensive line can gel. I think that they can continue to improve. And like someone else was just saying in here, where did it go? I lost it.
Super chat. I see that in there somewhere. A little super chat.
Oh, there it is.
Get some money in here. Money.
There it goes. All right. So I'm sorry, whoever your comment was. He said, I think the offensive line can continue. I don't know, something like that, but I forget. But anyway, here we go. Super chat. Thank you, Kevin Delaney. I appreciate that. He said, let's let Zack have fun with some trick plays. Ooh, what do you mean, like flea flickers and the like? What do you think of that, Paul? You think we're going to see anything, especially inspired by the sending Corey Davis to the end zone? You think we're going to see some trick plays?
I think so. If you watch any of the New England games, it's fascinating how much Josh McDaniels is incorporating trick plays in there, where it's either the sweep where they get you get off the turn, or it's the pass to the sweep, like Jacoby Myers, who's the former quarterback, Jamison Crowder, former quarterback. Perhaps you could get a little bit of that pass. The Jets would lose their minds if we have some sort of reverse. Jamison Crowder throws a deep Zach Wilson touchdown. Like, oh my goodness. First off, it'd be kind of sad if Zach Wilson got his first receiving touchdown before Denzel Mims, but I digress. But those kind of trick plays would be wild. And Mike LaFleur, I got to imagine, San Francisco does a lot of that wild stuff. And that's in the back of the Kyle Shanahan playbook. I got to imagine Mike LaFleur took a couple of those notes, but so far early in the year, he hasn't thought to go to those yet. Maybe those are plays he feels more confident in the middle of the season, coming out of a bye. Okay, I got 5 games in. Breathe. Now let's start getting funky. And coming out of the bye, like that in particular, that New England game is interesting. You have an extra week of preparation. That could be a great time to implement plays like that. So Kevin Delaney, super chat, well worth the bucks, man, because that's a phenomenal question. Yes, more trick plays. I'm signing up for it. Yes, sir.
I love that answer, and I agree. I think we've watched the offense struggling to get their feet on the ground. I don't know how willing they were to take a risk like a trick play yet, but that is a perfect time. If we go into the bye 2-3, if that really happens, going into the bye at 2-3 after 0-3, and then having that extra week to plan for the Patriots up in Foxborough, I think you're right. I think that would be the time. If we see it, you're going to start seeing it then. I wouldn't wait for it this week, but maybe they want to show the London fans something fun. I don't know, maybe. Try to attract more fans from Europe.
Smart.
Maybe the NFL saying, hey, we want to see flea flickers and all kinds of. That's it. We want to see a whole bunch of stuff there, Jets and Falcons. So let's see. What do we got here? This is fun.
Got a lot of love. Got a lot of love in here. Love it. Love all the support.
Right. So this is it's a good comment that goes along with what we're saying on the O-line. He said, here's the problem with changes on the offensive line. They have to have chemistry, and that takes time. So there we are. We have 5-6 weeks of Van Roten, but he's not doing well. So they want to put somebody else in, and then we have to start from square one. Do you think that it would be that way, or do you think somebody on the team for a while can still be plugged in? Do you think it's worth taking a risk and plugging in maybe a Dan Feeney or an Isaiah Wilson or anybody?
I do not. I do not think it's worth it to do any of those things because, again, Matthias here nails it. You have to have chemistry, and chemistry comes with reps. Just being at practice, holding a clipboard as a backup offensive lineman, you could watch everything you want to, but the chemistry and the communication of knowing, nonverbal and verbal of what your guard's going to do, what your tackle's going to do, what your center's going to do, like all of that comes with physical reps. And as I say, on top of not having just a stellar option like Dan Feeney is underwhelming, Isaiah Williams is underwhelming. Like these options are underwhelming on the surface. So if you can't look past the talent deficit, I think it's even harder to just say, we'll figure it out with communication. Again, a Forrest Lamp is out there. He's intriguing. If you want to bring in the talent and maybe do a practice squad situation where you develop him, get him ready, and then you feel comfortable enough to make a switch or something, perhaps you could dive in those waters. But just a straight Feeney, Isaiah, I just don't see either of those happening during the regular season. Change during the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, unless injury or something like that, right? Because we've already dealt with, like you said, like losing Becton. It's like we already had shift-a-roonies all over the place, and it's like this offensive line is still, dude, they're still not picking up all the stunts and all that, so they're still trying to gel as a unit. I think once they have it, we'll see an average offensive line, if not better. What do you think of AVT so far? Are you happy with the guy that you wanted most in the draft?
1,000%. Now, initially, obviously, there's struggles, and part of that was the pec injury. He basically missed the entire offseason. He missed all of training camp, no physical reps. He had the mental reps, which were important, but again, as I just said, there's no simulating the physical reps. You need to have them to be able to form that chemistry. Again, atrocious earlier in the year, but then this past week was terrific. So Elijah Vera-Tucker, again, is only getting better, and that's fantastic to think about for a rookie who's so young and the ceiling is at an unbelievable level. So I love where we're at now. It was rough at the beginning of the year, but that was to be expected with the lack of physical reps. Again, what a great selection, and I don't care what anyone says. You drafted this pick. Shut up.
Right. Now, this is an interesting one. David Gans, he says this often. GreenBean, you flexed, therefore the Jets won. Now, I don't know what that means in reality. Do you mean that I flexed? Or do you mean that I said stuff like I flexed?
I think you said stuff. Getting in like you flexed that they were going to win, perhaps. You kind of showed some chutzpah, a little extra swag in the bag that leading up into the week that, hey, you flexed, and then the Jets answered the flex, and then they were like, hey, we see you, GreenBean. We see you, GreenBean.
See, I like that. See, now, I don't know if you know this, Paul, but I was actually a feature on the most recent One Jets Drive. Did you see it?
I saw that. You, camera, the communication, and that kind of airtime. Wow. Superstar. Dude. Were you in the credits? That was impressive.
I know, right? I should have been given a credit, but that was a funny one. So I think maybe the fact that I've been guaranteeing wins all season, maybe that's what David means. And I think you're on to something there. That's pretty good. So let's see. We have a super chat from our friend Friggle D. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. 4 weeks in a row playing against 3-4 defenses will surely help build chemistry. On paper, the Falcons are the weakest of the recent 4 teams. So, yeah, man, like you've been talking about, this is a real opportunity. Who do you think is going to be the recipient of most of this? Who do you think is going to go off this game? Do you see anybody like a Corey Davis or a Keelan Cole in particular?
It's hard to, I'd love to say Elijah Moore, but coming off of a concussion, missing a week, and then, we'll see how he kind of, goes through practice. And then this practice week is going to be weird because you're going overseas and that unique level of travel. So as much as I'd like to say Elijah Moore, that seems unrealistic to project him for any kind of superstar game. I think defensively, you could go back to the John Franklin Myers show. He was spectacular. He's a guy that certainly could get love, or Quincy Williams. Sheldon Rankins is a guy. I guess if I was going to throw a name out there, he's been on the precipice. He's been spectacular. When healthy, he has proven to be a dominant force, and obviously that has a ripple effect on the rest of the line. If they're focusing on Sheldon, that's John Franklin Myers. If they're focusing on him, then it's Quinton. And then it's just a never-ending game of you can't plug every hole in the boat, and eventually the boat's just going to sink. So either one of those guys, but the guy I'd pinpoint, certainly from a defensive perspective, would certainly be Sheldon Rankins, for sure.
Interesting. You're so right, though, too. I mean, you could even see one of those sacks, Quincy Williams actually fended off a double team and still got the sack, but it was on a major disruptive move from none other than Sheldon Rankins. I mean, he caused the initial disruption, and Quinton cleaned up and everything. And that's the whole thing. Now, could you imagine? I mean, not to do this, I do it too much, but if Carl Lawson was on this damn team, could you imagine? And having Vinny Curry in the rotation,
this is I know. And I tweeted this out, and I never wrote the story for it. But the thing that I really hate about all of this is we were robbed of the vision. Robert Saleh, again, they signed Jarrad Davis, and a lot of us Jet content creators went, Jarrad Davis, that's the first pick? You have $100 billion, and Jarrad Davis is who you picked? And a lot of us criticized it, but we never saw what it was, and hopefully we do at some point randomly coming in here. But that to me is the part that I'm like, wow, that's bonkers. What would he have been? What would Carl Lawson have been? They talked about so much. There were pops in preseason. Just imagine. And hopefully we get all of that next year in full realm. But man, how good could this have been? We were robbed of whatever that vision Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich had.
It's very reminiscent of in 2019, we had Avery Williamson, one of the better linebackers in the league. Then we grabbed CJ Mosley, and it was like, all right, we don't know what else we have on this team, but damn, are those two guys going to thump up the NFL? We saw them for 0 plays, and then we only got CJ Mosley for 3 quarters all year. So it's just it's one of those things where we have some opportunities, but man, would Carl Lawson be feasting right now, dude. Bryce Huff has looked pretty good. He's coming up. He had a whole bunch of pressures, a sack and a half. What do you think of Bryce Huff? What do you think of the other guys on the end of the line, like a Bryce Huff, for example?
I will say that I think expectations were too high heading into the year. When Carl Lawson was gone, a lot of Jet fans are like, oh, perfect, we have Bryce Huff. And I'm like, guys, these guys are not the same player. And I feel like I'm not going out on a limb saying this kind of thing. But Bryce Huff, again, the good thing is, the first world problem is the interior pressure from either John Franklin Myers, Quincy Williams, or Sheldon Rankins causes the quarterback to go, oh, shit. And then he has to either run to the left or the right, and that left or right is right into Bryce Huff, cleanup, or whoever's on the other side, because they're mixing it up all over the place, is that whoever it is. So Bryce Huff has taken advantage of his opportunities. I still think there's, again, and I will say this probably for all the guys, a lot more meat on the bone, and they're only going to get better. But Bryce Huff, again, Joe Douglas deserves credit for some of these finds. UDFA Bryce Huff. Waiver wire claim John Franklin Myers. He's blown it in a lot of other places, but these gems make you feel a lot better about some of those misses in the draft. Bryce Huff is another good one.
Yeah, you know what? It's a funny thing because everybody's so quick to jump on Joe Douglas when there's an issue. And like I've said all year, I said, look, at some point, you got to give the players to the coaches. At some point, you got to take your stockpile of players and go, get these guys to do something, put them together, let them, coach them, right? So
Sure.
I think Joe Douglas doesn't get enough credit for exactly what you're saying. Finding guys like Javelin Guidry, who's playing well, man. He had 10 tackles or 11 tackles, a whole bunch. So no, it was 10 tackles and like 8 solo. He had 3 on Derrick Henry solo, which is, dude, that's not supposed to happen. That's the exact play where Derrick Henry does a highlight reel, just picks him up and throws him. And Javelin Guidry, with a very textbook tackle, man, just slid down on his ankles and grabbed him.
Like
so,
a little
like
chihuahua. Yeah.
Like a little annoying chihuahua that you just can't get away from. So, and I'm very critical of Javelin Guidry. I still am very concerned about his pass coverage and some other things, but you got to give credit where credit's due. And this is like I was talking about before. I would love to be wrong. I would love Javelin Guidry to be a Pro Bowler. I would love it, but you got to give credit where it's due, man. Michael Carter is Michael Carter II is a 5th round pick. Jason Pinnock, these are 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks. Brandon Eccles, Bryce Hall. It goes on and on and on. And we don't hear about that. We only hear about the guys that are not playing. The 2020 draft class is primarily injured, except for Bryce Hall. And we've all LaMichael Pirines injured too. So I think it's going to take time, but you're so right, man. Bryce Huff in particular, that was an undrafted free agent that Joe Douglas brought in here. And he's doing a pretty damn good job, I have to say.
And no doubt about it. And the other thing is, again, and I think we've said this a few times, but it's always worth re-mentioning, Bryce Huff made the team as an undrafted free agent when COVID was happening. Like, it's hard for undrafted free agents to make it normally on a 53-man roster, let alone with no preseason last year and everything else. So huge shout out to him.
Yeah, man. I want to point out this comment from Radion Buko Drone. I don't know what that says, but I'm going to assume it says, Greenbean and Paul, you guys are so good looking. I can barely take it. I love this show. It's the favorite, my most favorite thing I've watched all year. So thank you.
Best comment of the day. Thank you. Thank you, Radouin. Thank you.
And we appreciate that, man. We have another super chat from Kevin Delaney. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate it. He says, Quincy Williams fell and still tackled his man. More of that, please. Our D-line, even without Carl Lawson, looks great, and Shaq Lawson was a great signing. And what do you think of Shaq Lawson? He's had some pressures, some hurries. He hasn't really cleaned up anything yet. He's done well in the run game, but what do you think? You think that was a good signing? Is he going to improve, or did we see his ceiling, you think?
I think he's been, to be honest and blunt, he's been mostly bad. And what I mean by that is you had the roughing the passer, which was horrible. And again, whether it's on him or not, it's, again, the refs called it. So it just sucks. That's on the docket. So, and then he was kind of imaginary, invisible, the first couple of weeks. And then he's shown some pops of making splash plays or, again, rerouting somebody. So it's been mostly bad so far. But again, we're through the first month of the season. There's plenty of time to go, but I love the dart throw by Douglas. It's a 6th-round pick trade to the Texans where they're paying all his salary. You're getting him for nothing. And again, he came in super late, so I'm not going to be super critical of him, but I think he's only going to get better with time. And he's just a member of the rotation. So he's been mostly bad, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You remember, like, we brought him on the team for 2 weeks and he was starting his first game with the Jets. I mean, the good news is our defensive line responsibilities are rather simple. They just asked them to do a couple of things, basically get penetration and create some noise back there. That's all they're asking them to do. And I think that really, that's a nice scheme for people to basically thrive in. So I think we'll see more from him. He's still a vet. He still knows what he's doing. He's done okay in the run game. So I think that I think we'll see some improvement from him. And we like Soldier or Slaugo, reminds us, Huff got his edge sack beating the tight end last week. Amen. That's fine. He also had 6 pressures and a couple hits as well. And don't forget, he also got another half sack with Bryce Hall. So, hey, it doesn't matter if you beat. I mean, I know your point, and I'm with you. At the same time, if that's who's blocking you and you beat him, maybe they shouldn't put tight ends on him, and it shows that he's good enough. He's good enough not to be able to be stopped by the tight end trying to chip him, which is nice to see. So Meek Just Play 2K says, hey, Jets can beat Atlanta. Did you change your mind? You still think 42-15?
After the show, I think, we get a little bit more realistic as we go through the night. So, let me amend that and say it's going to be 52-10 now. So
52-10.
It's only the divide is only increasing. The good news is that I feel like this win for the Jets, again, we would all like a win every week. But I think the win came at a great time, that you see a vulnerable opponent in all seriousness against the Falcons. You have the bye week, and then you have the Patriots, a revenge match against a New England team that, quite frankly, hasn't looked great. They lost to New Orleans, a bad New Orleans team that has gotten trounced by the Giants. The Giants got the first win against the Saints. Like,
crazy.
How A plus B equals C? I don't know. But if you beat Atlanta, who's eminently winnable, you have the bye week, you have New England, all of a sudden you're back to 500. I get we're jumping 1,000 steps ahead, but all of it is there for the Jets, and they had to win this Titans game, or else the mentality goes in a different place for a lot of us fans. At 0-4, Falcons, London game, it's weird. Anything could happen. 0-5 bye week, God, who knows? So we didn't have to attach any of that. So the entire narrative changes.
So quickly. And that really is interesting too. Like the Saints, got beat by the Giants, and the Saints beat the Patriots. There's a lot of that kind of going on, that parity, we call it, And I think, look, dude, the Jets, we got, it was one of those games against the Patriots where things just went wrong, even from that fumble where the ref blew the whistle. Then there was the interception that the guy may or may not have dropped it. So even just from those things, like you could tell early, this isn't it. This is not our game. The momentum, all the energy was flapping the other way. So the Jets having some ability, a couple weeks of kind of putting it together and building some momentum with that week off could go into New England just thirsting for blood. And it might be one of those games where we make a statement. I would be, nothing would make me happier. And I mean nothing as far as the football world. Nothing would make me happier than to come out of that bye, go into Foxborough and kick the shit out of them, man. I would love it.
Especially all the shit talking I've gotten from New England fans saying Mac Jones is better. And I'm like, oh my God, he's like averaging 2 air yards a pass. He's just, my grandma could complete those passes. Like, come on, I want to beat New England more than any other team. And that strip still bothers the hell out of me. That should have been a fumble. Perhaps that changes the entire game. Who knows?
Right there. Dude, right there. That was early in the game. We were in the red zone. Right. We were in the red zone. We scoop that up and drive a touchdown in. There's a whole different thing. The energy, the stadium, blah, who knows? I'm with you, man. That was some bullshit. So B2B 111079 says, GreenBean, to accelerate or make it a sure thing of success, do you think that JD should have gone proven commodity offensive line via free agency instead of trying to build the line mostly through the draft? What do you think there? Do you think that Joe Douglas, the way he's doing it with the line, is the smart way, or do you think that he should have just kind of brought in some big uglies that were proven commodities so we didn't have to worry about this? What do you think?
Again, if he gets it right, he's a genius. If he gets it wrong, he's an idiot. But the thing I would say is that my personal strategy, if I was a GM, and I do Madden GM all the time, but if I was the GM, I like filling as many holes as possible in free agency. And once you get to the draft, anything goes. You could be the Baltimore Ravens. They're just a great team that normally whatever player drops to them, sure, we'll take a flyer on insert player, and then they end up being great because CJ Mosley is a great example back in the day where he was just on the board, and they have an affinity for Alabama players anyway. But they're just like, yeah, we'll take him. We don't need him, but sure. And then they just have this development, and they bring guys in and get the BPA strategy that is overbeaten in draft world today. But again, that's the thing. So I love adding things to free agency. But if we look at free agency as a whole, there's a reason most of those players are out there. They are the island of misfit toys in a lot of ways, outside of the rare exception where a spectacular player gets there that shouldn't, for whatever reason, a franchise tag thing, puts him up against a bind or what have you. I'm fine with the way he did it, quite frankly. I love Elijah Vera Tucker. Again, if you could have told me back during free agency, hey, you can get Elijah Vera Tucker if you trade up and give up this, I'm like, sold. Give me that. That's the long term. That's the building block you could have in theory for the next decade. Mekhi Becton, again, for a long time. They're going to have to replace at a minimum, 2 of the pieces. Connor McGovern, I think, is going to be gone after the year, and I think no question GVR is going to be gone. So center, right guard are big holes, and then hopefully you retain Morgan Moses, who I think has been very good, not perfect, but very good. I'd love to bring him back in another year or two and just band-aid the right tackle and figure that out later, and then you'll see what happens with George Fant. But I love the draft. If I had a choice, it's draft over free agency every day of the week.
Yeah, I agree. And look, could he have maybe brought in another guy in free agency or something? Yeah, I think so. But again, I think the plan was they had 2 more guards to battle for that spot in training camp. And we had, who could have really? One guy is going to go on IR for the year with a major spinal injury that they thought he was paralyzed. They had to end practice. And then another guy just up and retires out of nowhere. Like, who could have seen that coming? So I think I would prefer it this way. I would have liked maybe an upgrade over Greg Van Roten, if I'm being honest. I was fine with Connor McGovern, although I would have also liked a center in the draft. But I think this is the way to do it. I think, again, all things being perfect, I probably would have stuffed another free agent guard in there. But I would prefer building blocks, Becton, AVT, a nice center in the draft. I like that. And I agree with you on Morgan Moses as well. Follower of Christ, FOC, we call him, says, I'm calling for a 400-yard game for Zack this week. Realistic?
1,000%. He had 297, 298 against
297,
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Start adding them up. You had the Corey Davis drop. That's a 15-yarder. And then, again, you just start counting up all the numbers and all the meat they left on the bone, and then converting drives, you get this or that. And the first, again, they sleptwalk through the first quarter and a half of that game. All of those are yards. Now, I don't think it's unrealistic. I think Zach Wilson is going to start getting over that 300 burger, 325, 350. They're going to have those opportunities. Now, I will say here's a correction from a prediction that I thought was going to happen. I thought Zach Wilson was going to have this kind of production, but I thought it was going to be forced. Again, I thought the Jets corners were going to be terrible. They obviously have not been. But I thought they're going to be so bad that one of my takes that I said on any show, oh, man, the corners are going to be so bad, the Jets will have no choice but to throw it all over the barnyard. And obviously that hasn't been the case, but Mike LaFleur has leaned more past there. I do think 400 yards is possible this week. I love the call. Throw the money on it. You can win a lot of moolah there in Vegas. It's possible, and I think it is going to happen this year as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's an interesting take, man. I don't know. I struggle to see 400 yards, but I think another 3-banger could be possible. I mean, look, I'm all about it, but I just it's hard. I even forgot what it was like to score a touchdown. I saw the touchdown. I was like, oh my God, like we can still do that. Oh, look at that. Not just real goals.
Baby steps. Yes. Yeah.
So Carmelo El Bori's Way is asking, what's up with Becton? How long till he's back? Now they said 6 to 8 weeks. You have any timeline for him?
Yeah, they said 6 to 8 weeks, and that was prior to deciding to have surgery, which could have been longer. From what they understand, everything went swimmingly, and they're still hoping for that return. So let me try to get my weeks right. Is that they're hoping to get him back. What is today? So today's the 5th. Let's go the bye week. They're hoping to have him back, add in another month and a half, and then you got to get him in football shape. So it's not just him recovering from normal surgery. You then have to get him in football shape to be ready to go back and go. So that's a factor. I think he's going to be back before the end of the year. I think he'll get another 5 or 6 games, but probably week 9, week 10. I think we still have a long ways. It's a very serious injury. I think we should counter lucky stars that it wasn't season ending, to be honest with you.
Yeah, right on, man. And I could not agree more. It looked season ending, especially the way he was handling it. He heard that pop. He was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? So he was clearly having that thought process. So we should be grateful that he comes back at all. So anyway, I'm hoping that he comes back and is able to rebound. So Dackle in the chat, he's over there in the UK as well. We're psyched to be bringing you guys a home game, man. I hope that it works out for you, that maybe you can go. Are you going, Dackle? But he says, GreenBean, on the same thought, McGovern out to right guard and draft a top center. Thoughts? Tyler Lindebaum from Iowa, maybe? That's the name this week. We've seen some stuff on him. What do you think about keeping Connor McGovern, bouncing him to his original spot, which is right guard, and then just replacing the center as opposed to replacing the guard. What do you think of that?
I beat this drum in the offseason. Again, if I was running the Jets, I would have done this. For those who don't know, Connor McGovern did play right guard at Denver, so he had plenty of experience. It's not like this weird experimental thing where we talked about, oh, George Fant could just slide inside. He can figure it out. Like, that's probably better than GVR. Like, this is real. McGovern has played right guard before. If I was running the ship, I think it would be better to kick him inside, fine, keep him, and then draft a center, and then 2 birds, 1 stone. Unfortunately, the Jets obviously don't feel the same. They skipped out on every center prospect. Corey Linsley in free agency had 0 interest in, despite the fact I wanted him. Thought that would have been great. The draft, Creed Humphrey, other center options were available. Jets showed no interest in any of those guys unless they would have been around late. So, to be honest, I love the thought tackle. Me and you are on the same page. Love that thought. And obviously, Linderbaum is again the name this week that's, trending. I still think they chase the center this year, but the McGovern angle of it, despite the fact I love it, I don't think the Jets do.
Yeah. You know what? I think you're right, man. And I think Joe Douglas just felt really good about Connor McGovern. He didn't feel like that was a need. Now, I think the thought process there was, hey, if you draft a center, you filled 2 positions by moving Connor McGovern to guard. But who knows? Maybe McGovern says, I'm not moving to guard. I don't know. But we never know all the nuances and everything. So Jeremy's in there, and he tells me that Dackel is, in fact, going to the game. So good for you, buddy. That is some good news. I'm psyched to hear it. Hopefully you'll be able to make some noise with your friends. I'm looking for a largely home crowd for the Jets. That's what I'm looking for. I don't know if you know this, but one of our loyal regular listeners who was the most recent guest on our Saturday New York Jets Worldwide show, named Phil Adams, has made a Jets Union Jack flag, a nice big flag. It looks like the British flag, but it's green and it has all the green logos. This guy got tickets directly front row behind the Atlanta Falcons bench, and he's bringing that flag. He's going to hang that flag and yell at them about the Jets all game. So we're going to be looking for him on the screen. If you see him, keep an eye out. If we screenshot him, and we're going to collect all those and give them to him and let them know that we were out here and we saw him. But how cool is that? We have Jets fans planted right behind Atlanta to let them know.
Devious.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? So Samunk brings up a good point. We have 120 watching right now and only 76 likes. It's about the easiest thing you can do, my friends. Just go ahead and give me a little click on that like button. It really is appreciated. And you'd be surprised how impactful it is with YouTube. YouTube looks at that because right now, the way that the algorithm sees it is we get 120 people in here and nobody likes it. So screw this live stream. That's how they did it. Sounds strange, but it's the truth. So if you could, I would greatly appreciate it. If you haven't subbed to the channel, it's a little red rectangle. That's real easy to click on it. And don't forget, Paul Boy Green Esden's information is in the description of this video for his YouTube channel. And you can also find the Jet Zone anywhere that you find podcasts. Again, my absolute favorite and first Jets podcast. So let's see. AC doesn't want to talk about the draft. I hear you, buddy. I almost did an impromptu Monday night mock 2 weeks ago. I was just going to do it. Let's see who shows up. Start seeing.
We're used
how
to
that
that
goes.
Yeah.
Right. So let's see what else we got. We have it's actually midnight, so we're gonna wrap this up in a few minutes. Let me see if I can get an AC reminds you to hit the like button, you jabronis. That's Italian for lovely folks.
Yes.
That's what that means.
No, that's good to know. You learn something new on every GreenBean stream, that's for sure.
Right? And that's really the goal here, Paul. That's what we're trying to do. It's an educational program. So let's see. I'm just going to pick this one because there's a lot of words. I did not read it yet. Dark Soldier checks in and says Atlanta has allowed the most points scored in the league so far, 128 points, 32 points per game. With it being in London, it will feel more like a home game opposed to an away game. And there you go. You think Paul has told us originally he said 42 points. Then look, that's just the emotional outburst. After he settled down, he came back and said 54, I think it was. So that's good. The prediction is 54-10. And dude, I would be totally fine with that. Run it up. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. So, all right, guys. Well, look, we're going to wrap this up. Paul, why don't you let everybody know? I know I just told them, but let everybody know in the official way where they can find you and what you got going on.
Guys, like I said, it's a real pleasure. It's so cool to be on here. I think this is my first one being on here pillar to post for the after hour show. This is cool. Again, Boy Green, it makes it easy. You can see all my stuff behind me. You can follow me, Boy Green25 everywhere. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, which is I try to do streams and all kinds of fun action, trying to get to the Green Bean level. By the way, we're going to try to have Green Bean on this week, so keep an eye out for that. YouTube.com/BoyGreen25. We do post-game streams after every game, and we're going to be doing actually a Jets-Falcons preview with the UK Falcons group. That'll be coming up. They have their own group, which is really cool. I believe we're going to have that up on the channel tomorrow. So, guys, keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for the support. Subscribe, follow, like, all that jazz.
Yeah, man. Awesome sausage. Now, Dark Soldier just let us know he is officially subscribing to Boy Green. That's awesome. That's what we like to hear. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you for being here. You guys are the best. You're the absolute best chat in the world. I love it. It's always so robust, and I just love chatting with you guys. And Paul, thank you for being here. I want to wish everybody a lovely evening, and I'll probably see you tomorrow somehow, some way. We'll all be together again. But have a good night, everybody. Thanks for stopping by.
I think he's going to be day one, a violent vertical edge setter.
We compete today.